Hello everyone, it's Nick Peters, a gaming theologian, and I affirm the virgin birth. Christ tells us that we are to help the poor, but Paul also tells us that if a man will not work, he shall not eat. How do we reconcile this? Alright, so we're not going to be doing a lot in the area of story this time, because right now we want to get some better equipment, so we're going to be working to get a lot of that money here. But as I'm going through working on this, I'm thinking, isn't it interesting that here we're having to work for the money. Now, in a lot of fantasy games, including other Final Fantasy games, you would think, hey, dude, the world is in danger right now from an evil megalomancer force. Don't you think maybe you should consider just, I don't know, giving me those weapons since I'm out here doing what I can to make sure that the planet survives? And maybe that might be a good thing. But that doesn't seem to happen. Instead, the shopkeeper expects you to pay him for what for what you want from him. Well, that was awfully nice. Had my magic user get paralyzed. Good thing is the paralysis goes away right after the battle. I think blindness will still stay, but and poison will stay, but paralysis, yeah, it disappears. But that doesn't happen that way. It's almost like they expect that they still have someone they have to bring home the money to. It costs them something to get the weapons. They're not giving them away for free. So what's going on, Ben? Well, people today, especially in our economy, they really don't try to understand how these things work. Instead, it's usually just assumed that if you have good intentions, then everything's going to work out in the end anyway. Oh, fun fact, this guy is called a partisan here. In the original game, it was terrorist. I guess they decided to change that one out. Can't imagine why. But there are really good ones for us to find because they're easy to finish off and they give a good amount of money once we beat them. See, you can have the best intentions in the world for a plan that you think will help the poor, but intentions do not equal results. Now you'll notice one of my characters fail in battle this time. So here's what happens as a result. When the battle is over, the character is right back and they have 1 hit point. So we're going to go back to town here, but we're coming right back here in order to gain more money. What you have to have if you are going to help the poor truly is a plan that will work. Not just good intentions, but good results. And also very often, you want something that will work in the long term, not just for short term. Something that will stand the test of time. This is also why you have to understand good economics. And some people will say, well, take the money from the rich. What's not realized is every action we do has some consequences to it. And whatever we do, other people are going to respond to it in a certain way. So, a rich person, what do they do with their money? Now, usually you get the idea of, Ebenezer Scrooge McDuck's sort. That's, jumping into his gold and going through it regularly. And that's not what happens normally. Here are three big things that a rich person can do with their money. First, they can invest in places like banks and others. What does that do for you? Well, geez, when you want to go to your bank and take out a loan because you, I don't know, want to start a business, for instance, where do you think that money comes from? They get it because other people are putting in the loans for them. Now you say, yeah, they're not going to do that. They're going to go out and buy some big fancy yacht. Okay. Question, who's building the yacht? Odds are it's not a bunch of rich people. The rich people are requesting the building of a yacht, but they're not doing the work. Who is doing the work? Ordinary people, just like you and me. We're doing the work. Or they could just take it and invest it in their companies, which means what? More workers, more people getting business. See, whatever they do, if they put it back in the economy, at least in our case, the American economy, we're coming out ahead anyway. I keep forgetting which one I'm supposed to do. Now, when it comes into how to help the poor, taking it from the rich in the long term does not work, because they're just going to avoid investing anywhere. They can put their money in places where our laws can't touch it. You and I don't really have that privilege. And actually, my contention is that if you reward the rich for investing in the economy, they're going to invest more. If you punish them, they're going to invest less. We want them to invest more because that's where the jobs come from. And believe it or not, if you live in America, compared to the rest of the world, you are wealthy. The average lifestyle we have in America today would be considered incredible to kings of the past. Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great would be amazed at what we can do today. Heck, people who were leaders 30 or 40 years ago today have now died since then and don't see all this. They would be amazed at what we can do today. And that's not a blessing we should take lightly. Okay, well, how about, doing something to help other people? Well, there's a great book out there called When Helping Hurts. And what the message of this book is is that if we don't have proper plans to help the poor in a way that really does help them, we're doing more harm overall. He talks about being overseas, one of the authors talks about being overseas in a poor country and someone really, really needing medicine, and it cost $8. And what does he do? He reaches in his pocket, pours out $8 and says, okay, here, go get the medicine. And then he regrets it greatly. Why? It's just $8, right? You can afford that. Heck, you and I most likely could afford $8. Why, that's not a big deal. I mean, what, did he think he was going to spend it on something better? No. What he realizes he did in giving $8 was he robbed agency from the people there. They could have gone to their church in that area and worked together and brought up the money in order to provide for the needy person, because there already was a church there. That was who he was over there helping. Instead, the message that comes out is, you need us, the rich white man from overseas, to take care of you, or you cannot survive on your own. He looks and he says, I didn't even give them a chance to survive on their own. I just assumed that I knew what was best, and so I went and gave money to them when they should have a chance to go and earn it themselves and see that they could survive on their own, and they did not need me. See, if you look at it short term, all you see is, well, he didn't spend that much money, so there's nothing to be upset about. And the author says it's not about the money. It's about what the money meant. This is also why, when it comes to our plans, we all think we need to do something so we can feed the poor in the world. Right now, we already have enough food that we could feed everyone. Hypothetically, we could. But why aren't we? Because, once again, having the means, or having the item is not the same as having the means by which to bring about the result we want. We would have to directly go into all of these countries and make sure the food gets to the people it's supposed to go to, and that they are eating it before we can leave. And then we would pretty much have to stay there the whole time to make sure everyone had everything. We would pretty much have to have soldiers in every single part of the world in order to bring this about. It's just not feasible. And once again, it would be us saying, the rest of the world needs us, or they will not know how to survive. Oh yeah, that's right. See, we can have good intentions, but good intentions do not equal good results. Think about the case of a little boy wanting to free the caterpillar from the larva that it's in. And so he goes and gets a pencil and pokes so that the, the becoming butterfly can have an easier time to get out. Boy means well. He doesn't realize though that by his kind action, he has killed the butterfly. Oh, I've got enough to get some more equipment. Because it is by the struggle of learning and working to get out of that larva that the butterfly becomes the butterfly it needs to be. Now, does this mean we never give to the poor? Not at all. There are times that we should give to the poor. But, and here's the thing, I don't think it's best for it to be a government thing. Because the government doesn't really understand about how it is that a local community is best helped. Who knows that best? The community itself. The local community knows best how to help the local community. They know the ins and the outs of the community. They know the best places to go with the resources. And the more of a local government and the local community does things, the better off we. And I want to stress, I really want to say, entirely, the local community, which especially means the church. Because once we let the government get involved in the charity business, we tend to stay out of it. It's not the job of the government to provide for the poor. It's our job. It's what the church is supposed to be doing. Why aren't we doing it? And it very well could be that when the government takes over, we look and say, there's no need for us to do so. This is one of the things behind that, that meme you see of Jesus giving the Sermon on the Mount and talking about helping the poor, and someone says, but Jesus, can't we just give our money to the Romans and let them do that for us? He says, okay, I'm going to start from the beginning. Let me know where I lost you. Because that wasn't Jesus' idea. Jesus' idea of charity was not giving to the government. It would be giving to the people in need, and often that could include giving to the church, since the church should know how to best help people in need. The church might not know how to treat a sick person, but they know what sick people in the church need to be treated. They probably know best where they need to go for that treatment. These are things that we often take for granted, and we think, well, geez, if I'm giving to the government, I'm doing my part. If the government has a social program set up to take care of that issue, then problem solved. And even more, if we become dependent on the government for things, what happens if the government goes away or turns against us? For instance, what happens if they get to a point where we say, okay, you're not supporting the LGBTQ community? Then you get to starve. That might sound bizarre to you, but I find it entirely feasible. Why wouldn't they do that? also, and this is one reason why people need to study economics. You can also consider that people say, well, we need to make sure people have more money, so we'll take steps to ensure that, such as, oh, let's raise the minimum wage, or give people what's really like to be talked about now, a living wage. Well, problem with that is some people looked when when Walmart was really big into making sure that people got a minimum wage increase. So they say, hey, sure, we'll increase the wages of our employees by $2 an hour. We say, wow, Walmart is so kind to its workers. They're willing to go the extra mile. No, they weren't. Here's what you didn't see in going that route. First off, Walmart can afford it. They have a lot more money coming in, so they can afford something like that. But not only that, they could say something like that and then lay off a bunch of people, and what do you get? You get those self-checkout machines that do the work for you, and you don't even have to pay them regularly. That's a whole lot more economically feasible for them than paying $2 an hour to employees. And not only that, but also Walmart has competitors. When they go into an area, usually it's mom and pop stores that get cleaned out immediately because they can't compete. Can a mom and pop store that's just starting out and is trying to hire employees, can they afford to have to hire all these employees and pay them that minimum wage? No, they can't. In the end, they then have to cut back on how many employees they can hire, which means their service won't be as good, which means lo and behold, people will go to Walmart then because, hey, the service is better, Walmart gets more of the money, the cycle keeps going. It sounds very good to say we're going to pay these people a living wage, but it doesn't work in the long run because reality gets in the way. There is a limited amount of wealth out there, and we need to find out the best way to invest that wealth. So, my honest contention is really, I think it would be best if we got rid of the minimum wage altogether. That way, employers could compete and people could choose how much their work is going to be worth. And if you don't think you're getting paid what you're worth, well, you can go somewhere else that will pay you better. And that's the way it works then. And this is the same way when it comes to, say, government paying for health care too, which I also oppose, because if the government can pay for your health care, they can also take away your health care. I've been offered several times because right now I honestly can't afford health insurance. I've been asked before, do you want to go on Medicaid? No, I don't. I don't want the government in charge of my health, especially after everything we saw in COVID. I never got the vaccine. Glad I didn't, and I don't want to be forced to have to get something like that. And if a government's in charge of my health care, well, I know they could do something like that. there really is no such thing as a free lunch. Someone is paying for it. So I used to stop at the racetrack gas station to get my gas. And why did I stop there? Because they had a program that since I had bought gas there enough, that I would get a free fountain drink every week. Now, was it free? It was free for me, but they were covering the cost. They were saying if we give these people drinks for free, they will stop by and get more gas. They were right, because when they had the accounting get all reset and I went back to once a month instead, I ended up going somewhere else where I thought I got better deals. I go to the Smoothie King, one of my favorite places to go to, and every now and then they have these days where they give you a free 12-ounce drink if you come in. Is that free entirely? No. Someone's paying for all of the equipment. So all of the supplies, all the fruits, whatever it is for putting there, someone is paying for that. But Smoothie King is going on the bet that if you come in and get this small drink, you will like it and you will want to come back for more. And odds are, I think they could be right on that. That people will like it, they will want to come back for more. That is how the system works. Or you could talk about another idea. People say, well, we need to have rent control or price caps. Okay. You put a price cap on, say, eggs. Eggs can only be sold for so much. Well, that sounds like a good idea, won't it? I mean, if eggs are expensive, won't that help people to afford eggs more? Well, it sounds like a good idea with the best of intentions. So, what could possibly go wrong? And some of you might realize where that terminology comes from. The problem is that once someone realizes that their eggs aren't going to be able to sell as much, they're not going to provide eggs as much because the farmer still needs to make a profit. But he's going to say, you know what? Chicken could probably sell well. And so he starts selling off those chickens so he can get some more money from them. Eggs aren't as plentiful then. There's a shortage. And then, well, now we have to do something about the price of chickens, eventually. And the cycle repeats. And one reason that in all these plans that... Ooh, Sprite, that's a good one to have. I think I'll keep that for a while. All these processes have to keep being repeated, such as raising the minimum wage a number of times, is that they do not work. They only offer a short-term solution to a long-term problem. Sometimes we have to economically make plans doing things that will take a long time. but will work out better in the end. Yeah, the sprite is a monster you don't normally get until much later in the game. So having one now, yeah, I think I'm going to keep a sprite for a while. But aren't we supposed to be compassionate? And this is the danger again. Oh yeah, but if we say that so-and-so is compassionate, then that's the route we always take. You can be very compassionate and still be doing something that is not helpful in the long run. You always have to look past your motives. You have to ask not just, is my heart in the right place, but where this really help for people, it's meant to help. One time when I worked at a Walmart, I was working at the money center area, and a guy came in wanting to buy a money order. And so I say, okay. I start ringing him up and I hear him say, I don't want to do this. Well, that gets my attention here. And so I say, sir, what's going on here? And he talks about how he's doing this because his son is in a rough spot and has gotten in trouble again and needs money again. And he says, my wife and I, we are going broke over this because we cannot afford what's going on here. But he's an addict and he keeps getting in and out of jail. And I say, sir, I'm also actually a ministry student, and I'm going to tell you, I really think you should think about not doing this anymore. But then he'll go to jail. Yes, and then he'll go to jail, and it could be the best thing that's ever happened to him. Because, I said, if you keep rescuing him over and over, you're not really helping him, you are enabling him. You are in many ways telling him what he is doing is okay. And you do not want to be saying that. And I said, and sir, knowing that you are taking his problem right now, and you are making it your problem. It is not supposed to be your problem, it is his problem. This guy needed to care for his immediate family first, the one that was immediately in need, instead of going off on his son, who was being irresponsible. Now, just before I close, this guy comes back in, and he's moving fast, and he's out of breath, and he's got his phone with him, and he's talking to his son, who says that he did things wrong. And I can tell he's had a good talk with him because he says, I'm talking to Nick here. I said, okay, this guy's told him my name and what's going on. And he said, and this guy told me, he said, I went back going through red lights, everything, make sure I got here on time because he said I filled this out wrong. And I looked at it again, double checked everything, and said, sir, you did not fill this out wrong. Everything on here is proper. But you made his problem your problem again. And he made sure to tell his son, he said, this is going to be the last time. Whether it worked out that way or not, I don't know. I hope it was. Because his intentions were good, but he was enabling. And that is not good. Now, having said that, this is around the time where I need to remind you that what I do is supported here by people like you. So, in light of all that I've said, let me say a few things. First off, yes, I do work outside of doing this. I have a job at the seminary post office here. But also, when you make a donation here, you're not really paying me to play a game. What you are making a donation for is to enable me to have the time to do that in light of everything else that I'm doing, research and study in other areas, and to make sure I have the materials that I need to do that research and study. Because books aren't always cheap, just to put it bluntly. So you're helping me with that. You're helping me with my day-to-day expenses and going to seminary and everything else so I can better help you. And I don't make this part up. I really don't like having to make a pitch like this. I much more prefer someone else doing that, but this is a one-man show, unfortunately, for the time being. So it's just me out here making this request. So please really do consider becoming a supporter of my channel and the work I'm doing. And also keep in mind, outside of this, I don't only do this channel, I maintain a blog regularly as well. I try to contribute to a Substack. I do a number of things that many of you might not see, but I'm busy doing them. And I really don't ask for something exorbitant. Just the bare basics alone is sufficient for me. If you're willing to make a donation to become a donor of, say, $5 a month, hey, I really appreciate that. It's going to go a long way. It's going to help me out tremendously. If maybe you want to make a larger one-time donation, get in touch with me. I'll tell you how that's best to be done. And again, I would thank you for that. That way you can sell that for one gold piece, and when you get back, it's going to be there again. I'm not going to bother doing that. If you want to do it, that's fine. I'm welcome to, open to any kind of help you can give, really. Now, if you have a game you want to see me play sometime to get my opinion on it, or just talk about it, topics during it, let me know. If there's a topic you want to discuss, you want to have me discuss, I'm able to do that. I've given talks on Mormonism and the Church Fathers because a listener got in touch with me and said, hey, can you speak about those topics? Sure. Because this might be a show, my show in the sense that I do it, but I want to think it's your show because I do the work for you. I want you to be a benefit here. So please do consider making a donation. I really appreciate it. Now, getting back to what I was discussing here, as some of you have probably figured out, economically, I am a capitalist. Now, why am I doing that? Am I not working in a system that promotes greed? Not a bit. Because you see, the thing is, if you're a capitalist, you recognize already, greed is a reality. What has to be done is something to contain greed. So, if someone has money and you want that, in the economic system, actually I forgot to heal up, I think. I better go back to town. In the economic system, you're supposed to have a free exchange of goods without force, theft, or fraud. So, if there's no theft or fraud or force going on, then if you want the money someone else has, you have to come up with a product or a service that they need. I mean, when I looked at how I could best do things on YouTube with my interests, I thought, I don't really see a lot of people talking about Christianity in video games. If those are two things I'm skilled in, why not go that route? So that's what I've done. By the way, you might notice since I put on the giant armor that my sword is doing a lot more damage. There's a reason why you can see my strength is a lot higher than it was before. That's what the giant armor does for you. So if someone wants your money, they have to give you something you want in exchange. And when you give someone your money for what you want, you are making an equal exchange saying, I want this item or this service more than I want my money. Now, of course, there are some things you have to buy to survive, regardless. But in our system, you have great variety on what you can buy. I mean, just go down, say, the cereal aisle of your local grocery store. Look at how much there is. Ah, the rocket. That's something we really, really wanted. Because see, the rocket, you can take that and sell it for 3,400 gold pieces. That's going to be extremely helpful. If you go on a site like eBay, what you're seeing is people competing to see who can sell at the best price. And you have to compete to have a better price, a better service than your competitors. That's why you have phone plans and streaming services and everything else trying to offer you the most service for the least amount of money. Because every single one of them is trying to get your money. Of course they are. That's how they stay in business. And so they're trying to provide the best good that they can. Ooh, 2 rockets. This is being a very good time here. In other economic systems, socialism or communism, where you just go and you pull a few strings with your friends in the government, and lo and behold, you can get that money. Now, doesn't the Bible, though, condemn wealth? No. No, it doesn't. Some of the greatest people in the Bible were wealthy. Abraham, wealthy. Job, rich. David, Solomon, all kings, rich. The patriarchs had a lot of money to them. The problem has not been having money. The problem has been money having you. When money becomes a god, that is when you start having problems. When people put their trust in money instead of in God, that is when you start having problems. What we're going to do is just to be a bit convenient. We're going to move the kick up to the top there. If you have money, if you are someone wealthy, you are to use that for the glory of God. That is the proper use of money. Whatever you have, use it to God's glory. Now, maybe one of your gifts is you're very good with money. Use that well. Use it to serve God. Use it to help people in your area. This is what someone like Dave Ramsey does. And if you know someone in your local area who can benefit from your money and you think it would be helpful to give them some money that would not be enabling, then do so. That's okay. In the same way, if you're a good singer, use that for the glory of God. If you're good at building things, use that for the glory of God. Having wealth is not an evil. Now, it can unfortunately get you to think that wealth is everything and put your trust in wealth. If that happens, you got a problem. Yes, that is sin at that point. But just having money in itself is no sin. And for those of us who live in America, like I said, we, even your most poor person here, is richer than most people all over the world today. And we should appreciate that. We should be thankful that we are citizens of this country. And being in this country is, I do hold, a privilege. That doesn't mean that you live in an awful country if you live somewhere else. But it does mean that if you are here, I think you are very privileged. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a blessing you have, and you should be thankful. And wherever you are, if you're a Christian, do what you can to let your light shine in that place. Now, what I would also encourage you to do is go out and buy books on economics. If you are wanting to build a house for some poor members of your church, you wouldn't just go out and say, well, I want to build a house, and I have good intentions, therefore it's going to work out. No, that house could cave in on them for all you know, and all your good intentions don't matter a bit then. You need to know what is the best way to build a house. In the same way, there are laws of economics. There are ways the market works. And you need to know how those work. One simple book I'd recommend is Henry Hazlitt's book, Economics in One Lesson. Very enjoyable read. And very simple. All the chapters are short. You can go through it very easily. There's also books from an explicitly Christian perspective. I've already mentioned When Helping Hurts. That's a good one to go through. E. Calvin Beisner has, it's either Prosperity and Poverty or Poverty and Prosperity. I don't remember which order it comes in, but E. Calvin Beisner has some great material. J. Wesley Richards, I think the book is called Money, Greed, and God. That's another good one to go through. And then I recommend reading just anything by Thomas Sowell, Sowell. Anything by him is excellent. I try and get anything by him I can. If I look it up and I see it's on sale, I'm pretty much buying it instantly. Now, these are ways you can learn to better help the poor. And that, I still say we need to stop relying on the government to do this. Because Christ didn't call the government to take care of the poor. He called Christians to do that. And we can't say we're doing it as Christians when we're leasing it out to the secular community to do for us. We need to care for the poor. We need to provide for them. Alright, this will be enough to get us the final bit of giant armor, and then we can go on to the next bit of giant equipment. And right now, this also is me, in fact, working for the money. Money's not just given to you in an RPG. Usually, you normally have to do something to earn it. In this case, battling monsters, and sometimes selling equipment that comes our way. All that is part of providing. See, our next thing is going to be to buy giant helmets. So see, look at the stats, 5 and 11. Now if we convert you at 15 and 28, that is a very significant improvement. Now I understand there are some games that do have, apparently, communist and socialist economies to them. I honestly don't see how it works. I mean, I used to play Final Fantasy XIV, and you'd have a market board built up where you would either go out and work to get the equipment, the materials you would use to make goods that you would then sell on the board, and then you would try and set the best price for them, because people could look and say, okay, who's got this, what's the best price I can get it at? It was an in-game economy. That's something very fascinating to think about. And it works. There are several games that have in-game economies, and if they're capitalist economies, they are extremely likely to work because it's all about I give you something you want, in exchange you get something from me, I get something from you that you want. You want my gold pieces, my gear? Okay. Then I get this item that you've made. As you go out and you work and you'd craft something, and then you put it up for sale to get money back, and you would try to make it so that you would get back more than you paid to put into it. And a lot of people would do this also because it's kind of easier in some ways to have someone else make the equipment for you, so you can go off and do other things instead. That's the way economies work. Now, if you do have someone come to your church who's poor, James also tells us to be kind to them. Don't look down on them for being poor, and give special benefits to the ones who are rich. And this is even in line with teachings of Jesus. If you have a banquet, invite the people who can't pay you back. And this is something all of us could probably bear to do better on, to show kindness to those in need. But remember, our ultimate goal should be not so much a handout, but a hand up. Which I think another good book to read is Arthur Brooks's book, The Conservative Heart. I think that's what it's called. I'm going to read one he's got now where he's making the argument that it actually is conservatives who give more to the poor than it is those on the left. Well, I don't think I've got enough time to get into another point here, so I'm just going to spend a couple more minutes grinding here. And I realized I could do all of this outside of the live stream, but when I go for one of these games, I want you all to get to see everything that I'm doing. But I do hope you will take the time to consider making a donation here. I mean, by all means, make sure you're giving to your church first and helping out people in direct need in your area first. But if you have some extra that you'd like to give to another cause that you consider to be helpful to you, please come here. Please do like, comment, share, and subscribe to what we're doing here. Every little bit helps. And we're almost at our closing time here. Looks like we're going to be selling another rocket next time. Our next goal will be overall to get a grand total of 51,000 gold pieces. But I hope I've found something relevant to talk about for today with this. I don't think we'll be back until Monday, but thanks for coming by. I'm Nick Peters, a gaming theologian. I affirm the virgin birth, and remember, whatever you do it to the glory of God, even your gaming.